Canby Island, so he's an Essex man through and through. Now, I'm not going to say very much about it because he's got loads of stuff here that he's going to tell you about, plus his own particular career. Mark, thank you.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me along this afternoon to speak to you, and also thank you very much for a lovely lunch. A small introduction about myself and what I actually do. As already mentioned, yes, my name is Mark Stacey, and I am an antiques auctioneer by trade. A trade which is very much in my blood. My grandfather, an auctioneer, my father, an auctioneer. So for me, a very natural step for me to be involved within the antique auction business. My career really started quite a young age. When you're young, my dad used to take me to sort of museums, auction rooms, etc., where my grandfather actually started our antique auction business back in the 1940s. My father took over the business, and now myself and my brother run our antique auction business, which is based in Rayleigh. Once a month, we will have anywhere between 1,500 and 2,000 lots. Those lots will consist of anything that's antique or collectible. So an antique, anything that's over 100 years old. A collectible, well, that's almost anything really. That can be a cigarette card, that can be a coin, that can be a stamp, toys, autographs, medals. The list is really endless when it comes to the collectible side. So during the course of our working month, we go out and we meet people, we do probate valuations, we meet people that want to sell for particular reasons, one way or the other, people that want to invest. And the joy of my job generally is I don't know who I'm going to see or what I'm going to see on a daily basis. So a couple of sort of instances where I've met people. I do little valuations for church groups. I was a couple of years ago in a church in Southend called St Lawrence's, doing an antique valuation evening. The congregation brought along their objects to value, and I left one article till the end of the valuation evening, and this little article was a tiny little mouse. The mouse was made of pottery. It was Victorian, late Victorian, 1890s, 1900, made in Lambeth by the Dalton factory and designed by a gentleman called George Timworth. Now, George Timworth, as far as Dalton is concerned, is one of the best modellers when it comes to Dalton itself. He modelled little tiny mice in human-like poses, playing billiards, reading, painting, etc. This little mouse was roughly about 4 inches. It had a bit of damage to it, crack across the base and the chip on the ear. And I said to the lady, I said, well, how did you come by this? And her answer was, I bought it at a local boot sale. I collect mice, and the gentleman wanted £1, and quite gladly she knocked him down to 75 pence. So the conversation went a little bit further, and I said, well, what do you think it's worth? She said, well, she knew it was Dalton, and knew she was damaged. So she said her estimate was about £40 to £60. And I said, well, I'm afraid you're wrong on that instance. My prediction is about £400 to £600. With that, the next day, ladies and gentlemen, the mouse was on my counter in my auction sale. We put it into the auction sale, and these days the auction business has really been transformed by the internet. Each article that any good auctioneer will sell is on the internet. It has a photograph of each object. It is literally worldwide. So this little mouse was very important to us. We've done a very good image of it, and then the inquiries came in via the internet and collectors up and down the country, and the bidding commenced. Into the auction sale it went. The bidding started off at £400, quickly 420, 450, 480, 500. Are we all done? 550 new bidder, internet bid at £600, 650, 700. Going on after £1,000, now £1,100, £1,100. Now are we all done? 1,200, 1,300, 1,300. Your bids, I'm going to sell to you for £1,300. Sold for £1,450 in the end. So a nice little buy at a boot sale. But just to finish off my little story on this occasion, the lady was so happy with the result. Obviously you would be, but she said to me, Mark, could you do me one more favour please? Yeah, sure. What's that? She said, I want the whole cheque, the whole money is to go to Southend Breast Cancer Unit please. The whole lot went there. Just one little story out of so many that I have, but it's, the joy for me is finding the article and the story that goes on behind it. But it's amazing what actually sells at boot sales, what people sell at boot sales without actually knowing what they've actually got in their possession, as it were. Another great example as far as boot sale is concerned, I'm sure some of you might have read last year, a gentleman in Brighton buying 4 Masonic shot glasses. 50p each these shot glasses were. They were early 17th century, designed by William and Mary Belby, who were brothers and sisters that were in Newcastle. These shot glasses made £22,000. And it was as I said, a £2 bargain at a Brighton boot sale. So again, these bargains and these sort of finds do actually happen. You know, I've never actually come across a sort of Rodney and Delboy moment, but there are plenty about there, believe you me. A couple of my memorable finds, quite a few years ago, I mentioned toys are quite a collectible sort of aspect within the industry at the moment. And doing a probate valuation in South Benfleet, the lady had started dispersing of effects, had a skip outside the front. Please, you must understand that I don't generally look in skips, ladies and gentlemen. But on this occasion, something caught my eye, and it was a little money box, and it was in the form of Mickey Mouse, Disney related. It had that sort of 1920s, 30s Art Deco feel about it, and looking a bit further, made in Germany. All three sort of very good for collectors. Tinplate, toys, Disney related. This was going to make something quite special. Now the joy of my job is going, and I don't know it all by any means, but to go and doing the research on specific articles that I have a hunch about. I had a hunch about this. So off I went. I started doing my research. Went different places, different books on the internet, couldn't find very much. So my next port of call was the Bethnal Green Museum of Childhood. Anyone's been there, it's well worth a little visit. Queen Mary's Prayers, Doll's House, dolls, toys, bygone era sort of thing. Speaking to the main creator at the Bethnal Green Museum of Childhood, basically they turned around to me and said, "Mark, we only know of 5 in existence." So I felt like I was like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. I felt like I'd found that 6th golden ticket. Going on a bit further, this Mickey Mouse money box came into auction sale. We had serious collectors from New York and Japan, and it made just over £4,500. So just a little bit of a find out of a little skip.
Where's the next skip?
Where is the next skip? Who knows? But at the moment, you know, when we talk about the antique market and what's hot and what's not within the antique market, there's certain different categories that are. Toys are definitely one of them. The likes of Corgi, Dinky, Matchbox. If you have those toys in their original boxes, then you could be sitting on a little bit of money, ladies and gentlemen. You know, at the end of the day, if these boxes are with the contents, sometimes the boxes are worth more than the contents. Reason being, the boxes used to get discarded, thrown away, but these days collectors, they will want the original boxes in mint condition. So, for example, a Corgi toy, Chipperfield Circus, sort of made sort of late 60s, early 70s, that you could probably bought in Woolworths for certainly under £1. What am I selling that now for? Maybe £700 or £800 for such an article. Which for me is quite mad if I can compare and contrast to a Georgian bureau made of solid mahogany, made by a craftsman, maybe taking a week or 2 to construct, 1780s, 1790s in period. A lovely piece of furniture which would suit most homes. I'm getting like maybe £300 or £400 for such an object. It's the way the market is, and generally when I talk about valuations, when we look at an object, it's not the actual age of an object, it's more the demand. The more the demand, obviously, the higher the price will be. So sometimes when people come along to me and say, "Oh, Mark, it's old, it must be worth something," not generally always the case. What else is selling very well at the moment? I've mentioned toys, military items, First World War medals or something a little bit before. There's a huge demand for military memorabilia. What else? I suppose most people have seen adverts up and down the country, in newspapers, outside jewellers. "We will buy your gold for cash. No, sell your gold to us. We'll post your gold off to us and we'll give you cash and send you a cheque." Well, everyone knows at the moment that gold's on an all-time high. But some instances, like just general sovereigns, you know, if we had that crystal ball 3 years ago, you could have bought a gold sovereign for around about £80, £90. Now, quite comfortably within auction sales, I'm selling them for about 230, 240 as they sell to investors in the auction sale. So gold, silver, jewellery is a very strong point within the antique industry at the moment. Very strong indeed. If I talk about sovereigns, something that, you know, if you look at a sovereign, you just think it's gold value. Again, not always the case. The date is going to be very important. One example, let's say Queen Victoria 1901 with a sovereign in it. Why is that going to be worth triple what any other sovereign's worth?
She died.
She died in 1901, of course. So if you've got Queen Victoria's head on it, dated 1901, she died in January 1901. That gold sovereign, it's not worth its scrap value. To a collector, that's probably going to be worth anywhere between £600 to £800. So dates on certainly sovereigns are quite sort of interesting when we come to sort of an investment sort of side. Part of my other career that I do occasionally is I work for the BBC doing different sort of antique programmes, generally 9 times out of 10 behind the scenes. The likes of the Antiques Roadshow and Flog It are the main ones that I generally work on. They actually pay me to stay in a hotel for 2 nights and go to a lovely venue, maybe a castle or something like that, and do a job which I love doing. Which is to value items, to go through the good, the bad and the ugly before it goes on front of camera with the on-screen experts. But I've been to some lovely places this year, some lovely castles, and been to Oxford, all over the place really, but the filming's now finished for this season. But my job is that I really have to sort of cherry pick the items that go on front of camera, so I have to go through the good, sometimes the bad, and in some cases the ugly as well. Good, I can say quite easily, a fantastic pair of Royal Worcester vases, Royal Worcester, fine English porcelain of the 1890s period, painted by a gentleman called John Stinton, painted in the Highland cattle scene, lovely, you could almost touch the cattle. These vases I think just made over £7,000 when we sold that at the Flog It show, so that was quite good. If I talk about bad, excuse me, I was in Scotland a few years ago. A lady came in with a large leather suitcase, very tatty, and sometimes you just get a gut feeling, and I had that gut feeling that the crown jewels were going to be in this suitcase, ladies and gentlemen. How wrong was I? Lifted that up onto the table, rusty old locks, old newspaper, the musty smell coming out, and I was getting quite excited by this. Then I just couldn't believe my eyes. I unwrapped the old newspaper. There was a dinner service, and again, I just had to double take. On the back of this dinner service, the word microwave proof. Thank you. Certainly the bad. And if I go good,
very forward-thinking company.
Indeed. And if I go good, bad, I must go to maybe the ugly. How I got involved working on the television show, going back about 6-7 years ago now. I was involved with the Flog It show at the Towngate Theatre at Basildon. My colleague James Braxton was working on the show. He tapped me on the show and he said, "Mark, what do you think of this?" And I can honestly say the most ugliest piece that I've actually had to deal with. It was a piece of taxidermy under a glass dome. It was a little kitten, a double-headed kitten. I would imagine this would have been part of a Victorian freak show. 1870s, 1880s, you would have gone along to a Victorian fair and seen this with other sort of unusual different objects. Now, taxidermy is certainly something that sells well within an auction sale. However, when I value an object, or when my colleagues value an object, we usually have some sort of barometer. We can say, well, one sold last year and it made that, or we sold one last month and it made X amount. Never sold a double-headed kitten before. So a little bit of a guesstimate on our part. It was under a glass dome. We felt that it may be worth £50 to £100. Well, the glass dome was worth £50 to £100. What the cat was worth, we didn't know. So into the auction sale it went, and again it was filmed via the Flog It show. We started the bidding off at £50. Up to 100 it went quite quickly, 200, 250, £500. I'm seeing BBC cameras in front of me, etc. I'm thinking this is a wind-up, where's Jeremy Beadle? 600, 700, up to 1,000, and it sold for £1,000. And it's the most ugliest piece that I've actually had to deal with. But it's one of those things where there is actually wherever you look around, there's a market for almost anything. A collectible or an antique, there is a market for it, including a double-headed kitten. Just going on a little bit further, sort of unusual and quirky finds. You know, taxidermy, fish, you know, extremely popular. Victorian taxidermy. You know, people will spend literally hundreds, if not thousands, of pounds on bow-fronted cases with, you know, very fine fish and backgrounds of fish. Just amazing what they actually spend. Coming on a little bit further, I used before finishing and working with my brother Paul, I used to work in Bonhams. And a few stories as far as Bonhams is concerned. My first job, I was only 15 when I started at Bonhams and worked there for 7 or 8 years. I worked quite closely with John Sand, and if you watch the Antiques Roadshow, you'll know John as being passionate about porcelain. That really is my passion to a certain extent. My first ever job as a porter in Bonhams was holding a tiny little pottery owl, which was discovered on the Antiques Roadshow probably about 18-20 years ago. His name was Ozzy the Owl, affectionately known. Never one had come onto the market for numerous years. Henry Sandon had found the object, and it was one of those things that was quite a rare object. And for me, being a 15-year-old, holding Ozzy in my hand as it was being sold will always stand out for me. Not being my first job, but also just a great memory that it was sold for £18,000, and I'm standing there as it's being sold in front of the press and the cameras as well. With my career in Bonhams, I also went and worked on the Oriental department, the furniture department, so I had a sort of quite a nice grounding. So that was all very nice. Talking about a bit more about Bonhams and that sort of thing. One little memory that always stands out for me is we were working on a very fine picture sale one evening, setting up as porters. You would set up the evening before the viewing. On this occasion, we were moving heavy ladders around. Unfortunately, I was nowhere to be seen when it happened, but as the ladders were being set up, a huge ladder went through a canvas of a picture that was estimated at £80,000 to £120,000. Overnight, the restorers came in, it was all sorted out, hang on the wall, and there to be sold, which Bonhams actually bought it in for £80,000, sorted out the insurance. The vendor and customers were none the wiser, but a little story about I also occasionally, if we talk about television, work on the behind the scenes on the Cash in the Attic programme. I don't know if anyone sees the Cash in the Attic programme at all. You know, I just get a check from doing it, but I find it quite funny when you have the presenter and the expert go into a room and say, "Oh, look what I found! I found this." That's not generally the case. It's usually myself and a researcher about 2 or 3 weeks beforehand, or do a little inventory and that sort of thing. So when it comes to sort of, look what we found, it's a little bit of a setup. And that is really, as far as television work's concerned, the only programme which has that sort of set-up environment. The rest, what you see, is certainly what you get. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sort of wary of time, so at this time I will take some questions before I thank you.
You say you go around beforehand.
Yeah.
Do you plant things as well?
No plants, no.
They're belongings.
Yes, they're everyone's belongings, but we would go around before and do an inventory. So the no plants at all. What you see, the vendors actually
what they've got.
Yeah.
A few weeks or a few months ago, there was some publicity about 20p pieces that were minted without the date.
That's right.
Yeah, are they worth something?
They are. They've gone down in value because it was very well publicised. The first few that were sold on eBay were making roughly about £300. But now most people are aware of the situation of the collectors that actually want them. The price has now gone down to about 80.
It's not worth me crawling through Upminster again.
You can crawl through Upminster again. You might actually get money thrown at you. You never know.
He's got to get them out of his underwear drawer. I'll be honest, I've never been to an auction. What if you want something to be sold at an auction? What is the procedure that one goes to?
Okay, well, thank you for the question. The procedure is as follows. Any antique auctioneer, locally or in London, will give you a free valuation service. So you take the object of your choice to the auctioneer of your choice. they will give you an estimate on what they think it would fetch within the auction sale environment.
Yeah.
If you're happy with that estimate, they will generally set a reserve, let's say a ballpark figure reserve of say £100 to £150. They will use a reserve figure at £100 with auctioneer's discretion. The discretion is generally 10%, so the reserve is set around 90. Any less than that, the object will be failed to be unsold. Generally, auction commissions depends on the value of the object. The higher the value of the object, the lower the commission rate will become. So, for example, if you have something that's only worth £100 to £150, most auctioneers will charge you anywhere between 10 to 15%. If you have something that is worth over £1,000, over £2,000, commission rate comes down. If you've got the crown jewels, then it'll be sold for free. That's the way the general auction works as far as that's concerned.
So who pays the VAT? Both the seller and the buyer?
VAT is applicable on commissions. So let's again round it down. Let's say an article makes £100. The auctioneer will take a 10% commission, so that will be £10 VAT on the £10, not on the whole price, but the vendor has to pay VAT.
Yeah.
So you're paying the 20% on £10, not on the whole price.
Has there been any effect of the recession on trade? Was it just as it was?
The trade at the moment in the antique industry is very buoyant. There's sort of pluses and minuses. We would used to have, when the housing market was very much more buoyant, people would obviously be more downsizing more, so there'd be surplus items to be sold. But we are seeing now people that have invested in art, antiques, jewellery, that are looking to return their investment now and are selling. You're also seeing, unfortunately, people that are becoming a little bit more hard up and sort of quoting, sort of selling the family silver, as it were. So the aspect of the auction industry, I'm very glad to say we haven't been more busier than what we are today.
If you're selling a house, you want to sell the contents of the house, can you arrange the auction to sell at the point of sale, at the house?
I have done house sales before, yes. Yeah. Do you have a large house with antiques?
He is the antique.
Is it?
I am not for sale.
If it is the antique, generally when I value an antique, I have to turn it upside down and look at its marks. I don't think I'll go there.
If you make a commission bid, do you put in several figures?
No. Okay. Interesting question again. Thank you. A commission bid. A commission bid is when you can't attend an auction sale and you'll leave your maximum bid on the object that you wish. So you will leave the maximum bid. Say again, we'll talk about £100 as your maximum bid. The auctioneer will conduct the bidding on your behalf. The auctioneer will try and get it for as cheap as possible for you. In saying that, if you have competition within the room or the internet, then obviously the price goes up. So with a commission bid, it's one set figure, the highest amount that you wish to pay for it, including the commission.
And the auctioneer decides the jump up in...
Yeah, the auctioneer will decide the increments of the bidding, yes.
Tell you what amazes me when I've watched one or two of them on the television. The auctioneer will be giving calling his price, if you like, take 30 quid. Or he'll start off, shall we say, with 50 quid, nobody wants it, it comes down to 30, and all of a sudden he'll say, right, 20. Now how the hell does he know that that person over there is bidding 20 and not 30? Okay,
interesting scenario, because generally you look at the antique programs and some of the auctioneers. If an auctioneer has been trained professionally, they will never start high and work low. Professional auctioneers will start low and then work high to create the interest. The auctioneer has the right, on behalf of the vendor, to bid up to the reserve figure. So again, an example, if a reserve is set at £100, personally I would start the bidding at 50, get a bit of momentum going and work it up to the £100. When you see these antique shows with the auctioneers, no disrespect to some of them, but they haven't been professionally trained. No auctioneer that's trained professionally will go start high and work down. They will start low and work up.
What is the association called that we can take as professional status?
Professional status, there's two professional status. There's the Fine Arts Society of Valuers and Auctioneers, and there's also SOFA, which again is the Society of Valuers and Auctioneers. So there's two different societies that we get involved with. Also as well, you can be a member of RICS, which I'm sure most people know RICS as being for property, but auctioneers are also can be qualified on a RICS basis.
Do we have any more questions?
I was just going to say, if I may, I usually turn the news on when I'm at home, except on Thursdays for the 1 o'clock news. Invariably, I see the last 5 minutes of Bargain Hunt.
Yes.
Bargain Hunt always makes me laugh because nobody ever makes a profit, or very rarely. The winning team is usually the team that loses the least. But the auctioneers, as you just said, really always seem to start way above the price, and then they have to come all the way down before they go up, which rather enforces your comment, rather enforces my opinion that the whole thing's a bit of a sham anyway.
Another interesting comment regarding Bargain Hunt, which I always find quite weird, and most of the trade find quite weird as well. The contestants will go to an antique fair to purchase the goods to go into auction. Where have the goods originally come from that they have purchased? They have come from the auction sale. So the likelihood of them making a profit is quite mind-boggling, really, because the dealers have gone to the auction, purchased their goods, they have now taken it to the antique fair or to their shop to sell to make a profit. The contestants have gone to the antique fair to purchase, exactly right. So the scenario for that is very, very strange in my opinion, because the likelihood of them getting a profit, because the object 9 times out of 10 has already been to an auction sale, so it's made its price that it was supposed to make in the first place.
Yeah, so I often wonder if the whole thing's fixed and even the bidders are fixed.
No. As far as bargaining is concerned, there is no fix at all. But as you said, sort of, it's almost an impossibility to make a profit because the object 9 times out of 10 has already been through an auction sale environment anyway.
Let's basically go to a car boot sale then.
Car boot sale, most definitely, sir.
Quite a lot of stuff.
Indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, been a pleasure. Thank you for listening.
Mr. President, our guests, Rotarians, and all. I've been trying to jot down a couple of things here, but this man has a fantastic repertoire of his profession. He's gone from the television to his own experiences, to people's homes, and eventually he has come and taken us into the center of what his profession is and the exciting world of antiques and auctioneering. The most interesting thing that I came across in his little speech was that little owl that you were holding. Called it Aussie?
Yeah.
Yep. And to you it was quite an achievement at the age of 15. Today you have achieved something better, simply because you kept this whole lot away.
Very good.
Yes, that's a good show. It's a walking antique. Well, that was fantastic. Thank you, Mark. Lovely, enthusiastic speech. Okay, is there any other business?